Hello, everybody. I hope that you're well and that you've had a wonderful week so far. A huge welcome to the next video on my channel. I am so excited to be able to share today's topic with you because I'm actually going to be going into the depths of human design. Now, I have already recorded several videos around what human design is from a concept point of view, where I literally just talked about it. But today I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk through a body graph. But before I do, I just want to explain just a couple of things. Firstly, I think a little bit about me and my passion for human design. So I discovered human design about 2.5 years ago now. That's when the concept first fell across my desk. And at that time, I was looking very much into like my spiritual themes. I was looking at law of attraction. I was looking at the universal laws. I was looking at, what I was thinking about kind of how I exist in the world. So there was a lot of pondering, thinking going on. And human design crossed my path. And it was pretty amazing because at the time that it did, I literally felt a tingly sensation from my head all the way through to my toes. And I just remember almost feeling like I was frozen in time. And I then continued to read, but I would sort of be a bit consistent with it, really, pick it up, put it down. And there wasn't a great deal of information around at that time. And in the last year, I doubled down on it and I took a step out from doing any coaching or teaching or anything like that. I focused on my B2B marketing agency, but I also focused on getting certified within human design and especially as a coach. Now, I wouldn't actually say that I am a typical coach in the sense that, I'm very happy to sort of sit down and work with anybody on a personal level, but my passion and my interest really lies when we're able to mix that personal level with business, right? So my passion is absolutely with business and growing businesses, but not in the traditional sense of where you kind of it has to be a hard slug, where you have to kind of really, push against it. I really believe that we have the ability, if we are called to creating a business, that we have the ability to create something that we genuinely love. Now, when I say that, I don't mean that to be fluffy. I don't mean that to mean that you wake up every day and it's going to be really easy. If you are in flow with doing something that you love, then you will have hits of inspiration. You will have things that will motivate you, right? Things that will propel you forward. You'll have the tools, or they'll be shown to you when you have stumbling blocks and you need to jump over those hurdles. And along that journey, you will develop as well. And I think that's the person part that I love about business, is that I always say this to anybody I'm teaching or coaching in this area, is that the person that you are when you start your business journey, I mean, it doesn't matter if this is business 1 or business 10, right? And the person that you end up being as you go through that journey are two very different people. And you have no way of knowing how you're going to change, right? It's just taking a leap of faith and embracing that journey and seeing where it takes you. And so as I've doubled down in human design, I found myself talking about it a lot, right? I have a dear friend who I love dearly, and he has identical twin girls, and they're manifestors, which I was very excited about. And I literally sat on a call with him and his wife for nearly 3 hours talking about the girls' human design. Now, bear in mind that with children, your human design imprint doesn't actually really take effect until they're about 9, because that's when your energy field starts to really mature. But it was really interesting because obviously the way that we're choosing to parent is changing as well. And it's not a case of, well, let's take the traditional route of raising a child, putting them in school, and then, and so forth. People are now questioning about, how do they educate their children? They're really concerned about the well-being of their children, and they're really concerned about kind of, the happiness of their children. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm in my 40s, right? So I'm not saying that my parents didn't care about my happiness. They did, but they could only do what they knew at that time, right? What was available to them at that time. And in the era that we are in now, there are so many different options in how we can parent, how we can educate our children, how we can create well-being. And that's what I'm alluding to, right? And so that conversation was absolutely beautiful because it aligned very much with what they were thinking for their children. I have used human design in business when people have literally been creating a business, and we've looked at energetics, we've looked at the frameworks, we've looked at communication, we've looked at marketing, and all of these fundamental things that we use in everyday life. can come back to the human design charts for that person. Now, there is a lot of information around human design popping up. I feel like it's becoming this new age thing, when in fact it's been around for quite a number of years, I think since 1980s. It is a combination of several sorts of mythologies that you may have heard. So, for example, the Judaic Kabbalah, the Chinese I Ching, you've got the Tree of Life in there as well. You have astrology in there as well. And so it's a combination of all of these areas. And I have never seen anything so true. Now, I grew up in a time where, you know, we were having personality tests and all sorts of things, you know, when I had my corporate career. This is nothing like that, right? There are so many layers to human design. And so when somebody asks me to look at their chart, I tend to kind of start with what their question is, right? What's the thing that they are pondering at the moment? And then we start to explore the chart. Now, there is lots and lots of information out there, so you can easily Google, like, what is human design? You can easily Google what the different centers mean, the gates, things like that. But the interesting thing is that because Ra Uru Hu, who is the founder of human design, passed away, I think there are lots of people trying to kind of take ownership of human design. So, for example, I've studied with Karen Curry Parker, who's kind of evolved human design to quantum human design, which is a lovely, lovely new language, and the way that she explains human design. But I kind of taken all of that understanding, and then also my own understanding of it, my own intuitive understanding of it, and then also some of the traditional, and kind of arrived where I've arrived with it. The beauty of human design is not just knowing, well, this is what gate 1 means, and this is what gate 10 means, and this is what it means when my head center's colored in, but it's being able to sit with somebody with your questions, with your thoughts, and have them talk you through your chart that is personal for you, because no chart is the same. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of variations of these charts, right? So that, and every single human being is unique. So even if I think back to the twin girls charts that I looked at, they were born obviously only a couple of minutes apart. So their charts are pretty identical. But as I explained to their parents, the way that they experience their chart will be very, very different, because you're influenced by your environment. You're influenced by the information that you consume. You're influenced by the people that you meet, the things that you enjoy doing, right? You're influenced by all of these things. And as a result of that, that is going to give you your own version of what your chart is, okay? So what I want you to do today, and I'm just going to share my screen. So let me do that now. So I hope you can see my screen. So at the moment, I'm building my new website, and I'm going to be integrating the body graph into my website. So you'll be easily able to go over to the website and generate your own chart. If you just want to kind of understand the basic principles of it. And then, of course, there'll be some options if you want to, for example, talk about specific areas. Maybe you want to look at, you know, your business and how you can kind of continue to grow it, and the type of marketing mechanisms that might suit you, that's aligned to your energetics and your chart. You might have some parenting questions, you may have some relationship questions and things like that. And, you know, there'll be opportunities to be able to explore that on a more one-to-one basis. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you some areas of the chart that I think are very, very interesting. And I probably will need to do another video, if I'm honest, because there is so much, there's so many layers. It is very much like an onion. You just got to keep peeling back the layers, right? And I think as well that it's an ever growing thing, like ever evolving thing. So my understanding of it 2.5 years ago versus my understanding of it now is very, very different. My understanding and my love for it has deepened so much that what I first understood, say, for example, what some of my gates and my gifts might mean, actually means something very different to me now. So it, you know, it is an art, and it's really, really interesting. And I think if, you know, you can do one of two things. One is you get your reading, you look at it and you go, great, yep, I'm a projector, I'm a manifestor, I'm a man-gen, whatever it is. Whatever your type is, and then you kind of go, right, well, I've got what I needed from it, and that's all you need, and that's absolutely fine. But for some of you, you might want to start sort of using it to kind of help you continue to create and enrich your wonderful lives. So the chart that you see in front of you is the body graph. When you go run a human design chart on any of the software, so you can just literally Google human design software, right? It's human design charts. And you'll be able, they will ask you for things like your name, your date of birth, your place of birth, and your time of birth. The time of birth is very, very important. And the reason it's so important is because the chart calculates the planetary positions 88 days before your birth and at the time of your birth. If you don't know your time, which will be very common for anybody who's slightly, maybe 50 plus, is because generally they didn't write times and things like that on birth certificates, is that what we can do is we can run a number of charts at different times of the day and sit with you to kind of work out which one feels more like you. Sometimes the differences are quite extreme and sometimes the differences are quite subtle. But you do, but you'll always have a very small margin of error. And that's something to bear in mind. I think there's some very clever astrologers and things out there who can also work it back and do some miraculous things to find out when you were born. So if you know anybody like that, or you see a service like that, then that might be of interest to you too. So the first thing to note is that this is the body graph, and it's basically, if you were to turn it upside down and you were to remove a lot of these lines, it would actually look like the Kabbalah tree of life. Okay. All of these little numbers within this are what we call gates, and the gates hold your gifts, and there are 64 gates, and they relate to the Chinese I Ching. All right. And then we've also got these different shapes, and the different shapes represent the chakra system. So they align quite closely to the Indian chakra system, right? So you have your head, you have your anja, which is your like ideas center. You have your throat for communication. You've got here your identity center, which is often called a G center as well. And this is where self-love lives. You have your will here as well, which is can be very resourceful for you, and where self-worth lives. This is all about your emotional solar plexus. So this is about your emotions, how you feel things. This is your sacral center. So this is where your life force and your workforce energy lives. And this will determine how much energy you have to be able to go and do. You then have your root center, which is your pressure center. And that's basically enables you to kind of deal with stress and things like that on a day-to-day basis. And then you've got your spleen center, and this is an intuitive center. So it will tell you things like, fear in the moment, help you make in the moment decisions and things like that. Now, because this is software that I have now kind of color coded to be more Effie, so you'll see it's all pink. Typically they're browns. I've made it all pink and purple and blue. And you'll be able to see that on one side here, there's a whole bunch of numbers and symbols, right? So on the left-hand side, so this purple block is all about, as you can see, there's like different planetary symbols. So this is my sort of like your soul, your soul side, and then this is very much around your personality side. Okay, so your soul side, left-hand side is very much around 88 days before your birth, and the right-hand side is the planetary placement at the time of your birth. Okay, now these I find absolutely fascinating, and sometimes all I will do is read somebody's astrology positions at the time of their birth, because the insights hidden here I find very, very exciting. This one is the sun, and the sun is very much related to your purpose. So this first number is a gate. It's where your gift is. So this is the gate 44, and inside that is a gift. And then this little number here is like your personality line, right? It's how you're going to experience that gift. And there are 6 different personality lines. All right. And you can see here that, like, on my left-hand side, I've got one gate, which is 44, but then on my right-hand side, I've got gate 19. And what it basically means is that in my lifetime, I'm going to experience things within my purpose that are very much related to gate 44. But actually, as I grow through that, I will then also transition into bringing together my gate 19, which is all about sensing the needs of others, helping others, and things like that. This little arrow downwards, by the way, if you see this, it's really interesting. I'm actually quite excited about this, because when you see the downward arrow, Be careful of the terminology you might come across about this because it can be quite harsh. And when I first saw it, I was like, what on earth does that mean? And it felt a bit scary, right? But actually, when I slowed down, I was like, this isn't scary at all. What this is telling me is that I'm here to actually deliver certain messages and help people with certain things in my lifetime, but the planet as a whole may not be fully ready for it because we are transitioning, and we are transitioning. We're in a time at the moment when we are moving very much from this very materialistic way of living to this very kind of more spiritual way of living, and where we'll value things like sustainability, our well-being, where we will value, you know, doing things that light us up as opposed to doing things just because it pays the bills. So there is this massive big transition going on, and there are lots and lots of different people far cleverer than I talking about that at the moment. But what this downward arrow is basically telling me is that whilst I hold this gift, not everybody may be aware, maybe receptive of what I have to share and what I want to express in the world. And that has been an absolute life changer for me, because you know, sometimes I would see things and I would talk about things and I can see this blank expression on people's face. Now, given the fact that I'm a projector and my strategy is to be invited, i.e. I need to wait for people to say to me, well, what do you think? I'm thinking about this. Have you got any thoughts on it? Could I have your help? Right? If I don't wait for that, then it tends to fall on deaf ears. But this downward arrow is a little bit more than that. It just means that we are going through this transition period, and that actually from a world universal perspective, not everybody's that will naturally be in the same place. Okay, so much like the upward arrow is the opposite, so it will mean that kind of in these areas of my life that, you know, people may be more receptive, and that we're probably in a really good place as a collective to be able to receive that information. So when you look at these symbols, my software, basically, once this goes live on my website, you'll be able to hover over each one and it will tell you the planet, what it does. It will tell you what each of these gifts mean as well. If you'd like to understand what these personality lines mean for you, then that's where really you need a reading, or you need to speak to somebody who knows human design, because they'll then need to look at the whole chart, your life experiences, the questions that you have, to be able to kind of help you understand what these line numbers, these like 0.6, 0.4, 0.5 will mean, right? So we have, for example, here the sun, which is very much related to your purpose. And then you have earth, which is all to do with your stability, how you ground yourself. Okay. And I often come back to this when I'm feeling a little bit unsettled, and I would just come back to my chart and think, right, well, where does my energetics sit in terms of how I should be grounding myself? And for me, the answer lies in both my gates 33, experienced as a line 4, which is very much around being a people person and community and things like that. And also my gate 24, but this time experienced more through line 6, which is very much around wisdom and being a bit of like a teacher, a sage, something like that. So when you combine like the 44, the 24, the 19 and the 33, these will create your purpose. And if I just scroll down here, you can see here it says incarnation cross, right angle cross of the 4 ways, 1933, 44, 24. So 1933, 44, 24, they make up my incarnation cross. My incarnation cross relates to my purpose. And if you look at any of my videos I recorded, especially recently, you'll hear me talk about that your purpose isn't something necessarily that you do. It's who you show up as when you're doing something that you love. And the things that I love are all within my human design chart. Okay. Now, some of the other areas to talk about with these planetary sides is that this is your North Node. So these are your mature years. This tends to be your life themes in your 40s. And then this is your South Node. This tends to be your life themes up until you're about 39, so 0 to 39. So for lots of people, and I know talking about my own life, you know, I had lots of experiences in those 0 to 39 years that taught me an awful lot. I had loss, I had success, I had, you know, some stark learnings. And, you know, all of those things have been given me the wisdom to be able to move forward into my North Node theme of my 40 years plus. Okay. We've also got the moon. The moon represents your why. So again, when I talk about your purpose and your why really relates to your values. It's the reason you are wanting to do something. It's the reason that connects you to doing the thing that you love and keeps you doing that thing. Mercury is all related to your communication, and that's really important when you're looking at things like marketing your business, right? Within the Mercury gate, so 61 and 43 for me, and then also these colored numbers within my throat center, they are going to all tell me how I best market, how I best communicate, and the style in which I do it. And that has been an absolute life changer. In some ways, it's kind of just confirmed the things that I loved, and I've just gone, right, well, that's great. I'll just keep doing that. In some places, it's been like, aha, that's why I do it that way. That's why I'm drawn to doing it that way. Because by now, you know, I'm going to be 46 in 2 weeks' time. And by the time I hit my 46th birthday, I promise you, I would have tried every type of marketing way, every type of way to communicate my marketing message, especially as somebody who is a marketer at heart. You know, and so I'm also able to apply that wisdom and that experience to understanding the best way that I can now market my businesses, market my own personal brand, market when I want to do something. And don't forget, you know, if you sort of sit there and think, oh, I don't like marketing, marketing's not for me, you market every day. Every time you go and have a conversation with somebody, even if it's with a friend over a cup of coffee, you are essentially marketing. You are showing up as yourself and you're representing yourself in everything that you say, in everything that you do, the tone that you use, the way that you communicate with people, the way that you give, all of those things are you marketing. So there's never, I don't ever believe that, you know, when someone says I don't like marketing, because actually whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you're always representing who you are. And from a personal perspective, that's your personal brand, right? That's how you show up into the world. So that's really, really exciting. You've got Venus here, which is all about kind of your value system. So it works very, very closely with the moon and your why. Venus is obviously all about relationships as well. And so love can also be found here. Mars is an interesting one because Mars is around your youth themes, even the things that tended to be kind of very difficult maybe for you and your hurdles you had to jump when you were in your youthful years. Jupiter is all about your blessings. This is where you'll find things like prosperity, your abundance, how you're going to receive those blessings in life. And it's really important to understand that, you know, we experience all of the charts, no matter if these shapes are colored in or not, no matter whether these little numbers are colored in or not, you experience all of the chart. Okay, so I think we just experience it in a very, very different way, right? So and I think that that's really, really important to know. So the other thing that's related to this, and the reason I sort of picked up on this around Jupiter, is because nobody's meant to be on this planet to suffer. Nobody's meant to be on this planet to have a lack of money, to have a lack of love, to have a lack of self-worth, self-value. You know, we're actually designed as human beings to have a joyful and wonderful life. And that doesn't mean that that's going to be challenge-free, because you need those challenges to help with your growth. If you think about life, and if everything was always the same all the time, it would get very boring very quickly. You know, if you suddenly won the lottery tomorrow, which would be wonderful, right? But suddenly someone handed you £100 million. If you hadn't climatized or understood, you know, how you could what you could actually do with the gift of £1 million, you would likely lose that £1 million, right? So, you know, being given everything sometimes isn't necessarily, we think it might be the answer that we're seeking, but it isn't. You know, it's actually the journey in obtaining that is where the actual richness of our life lives. As we go through this as well, you know, I'm going to kind of just stop in a moment because I wanted to talk also, I'm conscious of the time of the video, but I also want to talk about some other things. And naturally, you know, as you go through this, once this is live on my site, you'll be able to run your chart and hover over, and you'll be able to see the different explanations in the pop-up, just as you see on my screen. And the other one to really look at is Saturn, because Saturn, much like Mars, is where you will have your challenges. So, and this is really interesting because sometimes you need to be able to address these challenges and overcome these challenges in order to be able to fully live your why, which is what's held in your moon, to be able to live by your values, which is what's held in Venus, so that you can ground yourself, which is what's found in your earth sign, so that you can live your purpose, which is found in your sun sign, right? So it's all interlinked, which is just fascinating. So that's that little part of the video. I'm going to do some other ones because there's a lot about this chart, and I really wanted to explain the chart to you, so that when you're looking at it, you can hopefully get some information from it that you might find useful, right? Now, the other thing that I wanted to say is that obviously within the body graph, often you don't have this left and right column. Some of them, like on the apps and things, they don't include them for some reason. But for me, I find that this is really where a lot of the really beautiful information is held. And through all my readings, I tend to do a big spreadsheet for everybody where I'm looked at every single one, and you can see the beautiful themes that run through people's lives. And it's just, oh, it's such a gift. It really is. It's just such a beautiful thing to be able to do. When we're looking at the different shapes, I think the most important thing to take away is that, number one, yes, they all represent something. So as I mentioned earlier, you know, the top one is the head center. The other important thing to know is whether it's colored in or not. So within human design, we use the language defined and undefined. So if something is colored in, then we say that it's defined. If something is white, then we say it's undefined. Now, what does that mean? Defined means that you are going to experience that energy within that center in a very, very, very set way. It will be a theme that will very likely show up throughout the whole of your life. So, for example, I have a defined head center. This means that I'm under constant pressure all the time, in terms of having to think about things. You know, my mind does not rest. When I have reflexology, whenever the reflexology touches points on my toes, she always says to me, Effie, your head's full. And I'm like, yep. And at this point in my life, you know, I've had people tell me I should meditate, I should clear my mind, I should stop thinking as much, when actually I have a defined head center. It is part of who I am. I'm always going to have a head full of stuff, but it's what I do with that stuff and how I use it, i.e. I use it to help other people and not try to use it to solve my own challenges. And I'll talk about that another time. And that's really important distinction that I've had to learn. And I've learned that through the human design chart. And it has been such a huge relief for me. Right. And then here we have the idea center. So the idea center is very much around taking those thoughts and almost researching it in the idea center so I can sift and I can sort. And I'm very lucky in that I have got some really lovely gifts within here that just make absolute sense for me personally. And when I use those gifts in the right way, I am able to kind of really have inspired moments, inspired ideas, thoughts. I'm able to ponder things for a long time. I like systems, just like human design, you know, and I'm able to really spend time thinking about things. I literally cannot take an idea and just let it go. So there's little point in anyone saying to me, just take it and let it go. Well, I have a defined head and idea center. There's nowhere on this planet I'm letting it go, because I'm going to ponder it. I'm going to want to think about it, if it's something that feels good to me, right? And I'm going to research that within my idea center, and then I'm going to try and work out how I want to communicate that. So when you have a white center, an undefined center, then these are energies that you will experience through other people. So when you're told, surround the people that you surround yourself with. So, you know, they say, I think it's like, if you surround yourself, you are the result of the first 5 people that you surround yourself with. That could not be more true. Right? Because if you think about it, when you're surrounded by a bunch of people, you're taking in those energies. And if you've got undefined centers like I do, I am taking in lots of energy around communication from other people around me, which is why I'm, you know, fairly strong at things like sales and marketing and business, because I'm able to kind of almost be a chameleon in the way that I communicate. And that enables me to have the clarity that I need to communicate to people, and hopefully it lands at the right time that person might need that information. You know, if you have an undefined emotional solar plexus, it normally means that you are a non-emotional being, right? Now, if I told somebody I was non-emotional, they would all laugh they'll fall off their chair laughing, because they'll be like, Effie, you are the most emotional person, one of the most emotional people I know. And it's like, yes, because I'm so busy taking on everybody else's emotions. And I've spent my whole life not really recognizing that at the core of me sits an awful lot of peace, and understanding that that's their stuff. I don't need to absorb it and take it on. And I have a fully undefined emotional solar plexus, which makes me completely empathetic. But this is a superpower. It means that I can go into a room and I can read a room. I can work with people and read those people so that I know how I want to communicate any thoughts and ideas that we may have discussed, so that I can help them, right? But the challenge with the undefined center is that it's also the place where you may be the most conditioned. And conditioning happens to us really from the years of 9 onwards. So when we're 9, up until about 9 years old, lots of stuff would have been happening to us, and those things would have been imprinting on us. And conditioning normally happens in our energetic field from about 9 years old. And this is where maybe somebody is told, other people's opinions, the way that you've been brought up, the type of environment that you've existed in, the type of environment that you've created for yourself now. It's everything that goes on in the world. Now, we are surrounded by information all the time. There is no way that you can realistically stay clear of absolutely everything that's around you, right? But if you have the awareness to know, well, I'm reading this thing, right? I'm reading this article, or maybe I'm listening to the news. I turn the news off. I don't listen to the news. I find it very depleting. My energy, it gets me down, and I feel quite helpless. So whilst working on why that is happening within my body, I actually don't listen to it. And what happens is my husband tells me what's going on in the news because he loves it. He thrives off it. But what he does is he runs it through a filter for me because he knows me. And that's great. It works brilliantly, right? So, I choose how I want to filter information into my world. But also I have this awareness now where I kind of think, well, I can choose whether I want to look at that through the lens of love and acceptance, and it's something that makes me feel good, or I can choose to look at that through the lens of, well, it's not very helpful. It doesn't make me feel good. It's not really something I want to bring into my space. And now I have those two lenses, and I can sift and I can sort between what I do bring into my world and what I don't. I'm building those boundaries, which protects me, right? And it helps me to work through some of the themes of conditioning that have happened in these centers, okay, that are open. And it's very exciting, really. I think, when you look at these colored numbers, much like the colored centers, these gifts are they're defined. You have definition around these gifts, which basically means that you will experience them in various ways throughout your life. There will just be constant themes that throughout your life that you are going to be working through. So think of it as a sliding scale, right? We start at 1, we end at 10, and we're moving up and down this scale depending on what's going on in our life, who we're speaking to, what we're doing. Right. And the idea is that you clear your pathway for that particular gift as you go through your life, because that's what your life's experience and your life journey gives you. Right. And so hopefully you're able to then move up and down the scale into a place. If you say 10 is like the best version of the scale, right? You're hopefully moving more towards that because you're actually in a phase of your life that maybe, you've learned that lesson and you can move on. And this is where people talk about the shadow side. Shadow side is basically conditioning, right? It's basically looking at your open centers and working out where it might cause you some pain or some discomfort. If the numbers are white, so you can see white numbers, things like this, then these are basically undefined gifts, and they're just going to be gifts that you may experience with somebody else, right? So you'll basically take on their energy. And the important thing to know about white centers and white numbers is you'll take on the energy of others in those areas, but you will amplify it, which is why if you are, say, have an open emotional center, this is probably one of the easiest ones to explain, and you're near somebody who's having a bit of a temper moment or they're being impatient, you may feel the impatience and suddenly you find yourself getting impatient. Right. But your natural position isn't to be impatient. You're a patient person. But all of a sudden you find that you're actually getting really impatient. You're getting very agitated because the person next to you is getting agitated. But now you're starting to really blow it up, because when we take on that energy, we amplify it. Okay. So think about, you take it on and then you 10x it. right? And that's really interesting. And I've seen that play out in so many different ways, especially with my husband, who I love dearly, but is one of the most impatient people that I know. And he's a manifesting generator, and that's part of his conditioning. So there's work there to be done for him. But he can get very, very impatient. And I'm quite a patient person. But when I'm near him and he has hit a traffic jam and he's blowing through his nose about kind of, maybe how someone's driving, we live on the Isle of Wight, little island, right? Small lanes. You can imagine suddenly a tractor pulls out, poor tractor's just trying to get from A to B. And then there's my husband stuck behind it. I mean, you'd think that literally the entire road had collapsed in on him because he's having a real moment. And suddenly I can feel the anxiety raising in me. And I then get cross, right? And I will then verbalize being cross, right? But now I've learned, I just take a moment because I just think that's his stuff. I don't need to feel like that. I'm sifting and I'm sorting. Do I want to take this on? Is it going to make me feel good or not? But sometimes I can't do that. Sometimes in the moment, he's blown up so much, I'm going to blow up as well because I haven't had the space and allowed myself just that deep breath moment where I can suddenly just question what's going on around me and choose whether it's something I want to allow into my space. But I'd say 7 times out of 10, I'm able to do that now, and it comes through practice. And it's come from the awareness and understanding of what this emotional center means. So yeah, so just a little story really for you. The colored lines here are called channels. And so for some of you, you'll have lots of different fully colored lines. You'll have fully colored channels. These are themes that will play out in your life. For some of you, there'll be half, like I've got lots of half ones. You can see I've got a 4-1 from my 61 to 24, and I've got 44 to 26. So for those of you who know human design, you'll know exactly what those channels mean. And again, once this software comes out onto my website, you'll be able to hover over it and it will give you a little small blurb. So you'll just get an idea of what it means. But the 44 to 26 for me is very, very exciting because that's my entrepreneur channel. It's also where my love of business lies, my love of marketing, my love of sales. And I can tell you now that the moment I saw that channel, I went, that makes complete sense why I look at everything through that lens, why all my experiences in my life have been associated with the life theme of business. So that's a really interesting one. When you've got a half, what you're basically doing is that you're then looking for the other half. Your energy field is constantly looking throughout the different people that you attract into your life. And they're constantly looking for the other half so it can match you. When the two comes together, you'll feel it. Like when you come together with somebody else who completes your channel, you will feel it. You'll feel, in some ways complete, that it's just easy working with them, right? It's just easy being with them. Something, it's just fun. It's just good. It's healthy, right? You'll feel really excited about it. So, yeah, so it's really very, very interesting. These numbers are going to tell you things like your environment, the best environment, your digestive sense, how you manifest, all these kind of things. That's what these numbers up here will tell you. And then you've also got the little summary underneath. And you can see here, it's telling me what the gates are. So these are all my colored gates. So like 1, 21 is colored. So I should have 21 there. I do. And these are the channels. So my full channel, 44 to 26, you can see that's there. And you can see 24 to 61. And that's there as well. And then it will tell me things like my motivation. It will tell me things, my perspective, what environments I love. This one makes me smile because it's valleys. And I live on the Isle of Wight. I literally live in the middle of nowhere. I love, love, love expansive space. I get very claustrophobic in closed spaces. And that's something that I've had to work through my whole life. And this makes complete sense to me. And it doesn't matter whether that's expansive sea or expansive country. I need to be able to see everything around me in order for it to ground me. So it was really lovely to see that. I think as well, feeling like fear in terms of motivation makes complete sense because I've got a defined spleen and that's where fear lives. So that makes complete sense. And it's not like fear of loss, right? It could be the fear of something happening. It could be the fear of excitement. It could be anything that's related to it that will motivate me and help propel me forward. And that's been really interesting for me to try and understand and explore what that means in my life. And actually the times where I've had this knee-jerk reaction to do things and where that motivation has come from. Lots of human design coaches will talk about your signature theme, because this is how you will feel when you are aligned. So as a projector who is constantly waiting to be invited so I can share all this knowledge and information that I have, because nothing makes me more happy, and finding my people who are, who are open and receptive to receiving this information, when that happens, I will feel like success. And so for me, success is a really interesting theme, because actually you can get hung up on it as well. It's got an ego side to it too. And that's something that showed up a lot in my South nodes and my youth years, in my Mars themes, so my youth themes. There was a lot of stuff, a lot of things about needing to be heard, needing to be seen to be successful. So I would often say things and react to things in a way to try and go me. Whereas now I just don't do that. It doesn't come into my sphere, simply because I've been through that journey, and I've climbed that sliding scale that we spoke about previously. The profile is your personality. This is really, really important, because when you're looking at your chart, you're often looking at it through the lens of your personality. So I'm a 4/6. So a 4 is very much around being a people person. I love community. I love networking. I like, having my close circle of people. I don't need big groups or big rooms of people, just smaller groups I'm best suited in. And that's right, because I've been a community strategist for my whole life, pretty much ever since I was a little girl. I love bringing people together. I love nurturing community, and not just for me, but to bring the people in the community together. So if I look at the Handmade Association, a lot of those ladies are still friends, and those friendships were developed as a result of coming into the community. Now they've put in the hard work to develop the friendships and maintain those friendships, but the starting point was the initial community, and that's perfect for a 4, right? A 6 is very much where you'll take that information and you're almost, you're knowledgeable, you're wise, you have things that you want to share. You'll often find that with a 6, people will ask you your opinion on things. They'll suddenly just phone you up and ask you about something, and maybe later you'll think, that's strange, why did they ask me that? Well, it's because you're a 6, right? You have this energy that's emanating out of you and that's attracting people to you. And within my throat center here, there are some leadership qualities here as well. So when I then look at the 6 and I look at the leadership qualities, it's not a leader that's kind of somebody that would walk into a room and you are, that's a leader, that's somebody that like a Barack Obama, right? But I'm like, for me, I'm more of a community leader. I'm somebody that tends to be voted in by other people. They'll kind of push me forward to be the spokesperson, which has happened my whole life. And sometimes I say to my husband, why is it always me sticking my head above the parapet? It makes complete sense, because it lives in one of my gates here. So yeah. So this is really, really important. There's obviously also the condition side, so your shadow side on your personality, people pleasing, things like that, being very egotistical with your knowledge. It's my voice, it's more important than yours. That can be the extreme side of it. So depending on where you are on that sliding scale, right? But it gives you the awareness to understand that, and hopefully, help you reason with yourself that you are beautiful and wonderful just as you are. And then, here as well, your inner authority, this is how you make decisions. So for me, it's splenic. I'm very, very intuitive. Anyone who knows me will know that I lead, run, do everything by my instincts. And for me, this is the only authority that enables you to make an in the moment decision. So if you have an emotional authority, for example, you'll need to ride out your emotional wave, and make sure that the answer or the thing that you're wanting to do is consistent through the ups and downs of your emotions. If it is, then it's a go. If it's not, then you walk away. But the splenic authority is basically something, it's an old one. It's historically from the old world, the material world. It's also like from hunters and gatherers, when they were hunting for their food, it would be their spleen that would kind of give them the pulse as to whether they're in danger or not. So it's quite an old, wise kind of instinctive authority, which is quite nice. So yeah, so there's tons of stuff. I'm conscious of this video going on longer, but please, do run your chart. Like I said, this will be coming up on my website shortly. So as soon as I do, I'll let everybody know. Feel free to add a comment below, add any questions or anything that you're not, that I've said that you'd like to know a little bit more about. And then what I'm going to do is also then I'm going to create another video where I'll talk about, say, the different gifts, what these numbers mean and things like that. So if this is of interest, then please subscribe to the channel, because I keep saying to everyone, subscribe. But the reason I'm saying that is because I want you to be able to get these videos as I drop them. Because if you are receptive to this information, I'm hoping it will be very useful for you. It has been so wonderful talking to you today. Thank you so, so much for your time. And as I said, if you've got any questions, pop them below, and I hope to speak to you very soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.